morning. This is Rosalie. It's where I am today. It's bright and sunny. A little chilly, but I'm feeling good. Hope you're feeling good. I had a telephone call from my from my granddaughter. She said she wanted some family history. So since this is Women's History Month and I'm talking about my story, I know I talked a little bit last week about my life as a battered woman and being a survivor of that situation. But I want to talk today, and this is dedicated to my grandchildren and my nieces who have asked me about family heritage. And I'm doing this from memory. So this is my memory of the family history. I had a class once that said, if you're going to write an autobiography, you should start at 2 years before you were born. Look at what your parents were doing and where they were in their life. Well, let's see. 2 years before I was born was 1939. And my biological father was a student at Virginia State. He was one of 9 children that was born to Lula and Ralph Wicks. So his name was Burnell. He was a student at Virginia State, like I said. He had a good year, so they say. He was captain of the debate team, Virginia State's debate team. They had won state championship. But whatever, with all the good stuff going on in his life, for some reason he became depressed, I guess. He wanted to commit suicide, I understand. And according to family history, he went to a river, stood on the bridge with the intent of jumping off. But when he looked at the water, he saw grandmother's face on the water and he was unable to jump. However, he left school that day and he didn't return. He was unable to find work in Virginia. So he went to Atlantic City in 1940, the summer of 1940, to look for a job. There he met a woman who had, her name was Constance, and she had given birth to her 7th child before she had gone to Atlantic City. And she too was a Virginian. My understanding is that she was 13 when she got married, had her first child. And at least every 2 years thereafter, she had her child. So as I said, she had had her 7th child. That child had been taken to Virginia and placed with a friend of hers. Now the story goes is that baby boy, whose name on the birth certificate was William, but everybody ended up calling him Russell for some reason, I don't know why, cried a lot, and the woman she had placed him with did not keep the baby. But Constance did not go back to get the baby. And allegedly the woman put the baby in a basket with a bottle and put him out beside the road. And neighbors heard the baby, saw him, took him in and raised him, although she had, I think, about 5 children of her own. But he was the youngest child in that house, so he became the baby boy of that household. What else do I want to say? Well, I grew up thinking that I was the most unlovable person in the world because my mother didn't love me enough to keep me and raise me as the society say a mother should do. But with a lot of inner child work and a lot of counseling, I have come to appreciate the fact that I was placed in the home where I was, and I was placed with Burnell's sister and her husband, who did not have children, so I grew up as an only child. And I like to shock people sometimes by saying, I am my mother's 8th child, I am my father's oldest child, I am an only child, which makes me kind of effed up. But aside from that, moving along. So, the kids who my daughter asked me who were my siblings. There were 12 living kids that I remember. Bernard, Sarah, Mary, Eddie, Earl. And then there was Harold, who was raised by Uncle Warner and Aunt Annie. Then there was Russell, who I just talked about. And then me. And under me was Jerry and Winston. Now, the three of us were born a year apart, 41, 42, and 43. We all have the same had the same complexion, the same kind of facial structure. So when we would meet in Atlantic City in the summertime, people thought we were triplets when we were on the boardwalk. That was kind of fun. At least it left me with a fond memory of being with the two of them and having people look at us and think that we were triplets. And then after Winston, there is Sheila and Burnell. And I understand that Burnell's nickname was Booney, and then he changed it to Zaid before he died. What I want to talk about? Oh, Sheila, and then there was Johnny. I understand Johnny lived for 2 weeks, and then he died. He was also with Gertrude, where Sheila was. And Sheila grew up in a household where she was an only child. Winston grew up in a household where he was an only child, but he grew up in the city of Chester. So we were kind of scattered around the East Coast a little bit. I have 3 children. Let's see. Bernard has 2, Constance and Carlos. Bernard. Sarah had, as I remember, Sharon, Robert, Harold, Brian, and I can't remember the other one. That's a shame, but she had 5 kids as I remember them. Mary had, I'm going to say she had Constance, who we call Little Connie, Bonita, Shannon, and Dennis. Eddie did not have any children that I can remember. Earl has, I think, 2 girls that I can't remember their names right now, and a boy named Eric. And who else is there? Oh, Hal's kids, I don't know at all. I know he had several kids. I think he had some kids in Atlantic City, some kids in Philadelphia, and probably some kids in Florida. But he has a number of kids. Who else? Russell had Amy Jean, Annette, William, and Bernard, 4 kids. Let's see, Bernal Booney, he had Aaron and Darren, and then there are at least 3 other boys that I don't know the names of. So someone, if any of you hear this and you want to add to the story, please let me know. You know how to get in touch with me. People, you call me Aunt Rose, so you can send me a text. You have my number. You can send me an email, and I'll be glad to update the story. Sheila had Jerome and Victoria. Who else is there? I guess that's it. Winston didn't have any children. So that's kind of a little bit about my background. What does that say about my granddaughter suggested that as we meet for holidays, where we go around and say what we're grateful for, that we will also talk about family history. Because when we look at the Wicks side of the family, Burnell's side of the family, I happen to be the senior living member. And that's, I grew up, there was my aunts, there were my uncles, everybody. Grandma was alive, Mom was alive. Now there's only me. And I have forgotten a lot. Burnell's mother was named Lula Lily. She married Ralph Wicks when she was 16. She eloped. I loved her story. of how her mother and father didn't want her to marry Ralph, but she was in love and she wanted to. And he picked her up on a Thursday afternoon in a horse and buggy, and they were supposed to be going out for a ride, but they went to to the courthouse in the next county. I got married, and when she came home, she went to the home with him, with his parents, and there she stayed on that land, on that property, until she developed dementia, and her sons had to take her to Philadelphia. So again, I say, this is Rosalie giving you a little bit about my background. And as I said, this is dedicated to my grandchildren and to my nieces and nephews. And if you have any input, let me know. I'll update it whenever possible. And to all of you, I say, if you haven't given close attention to your family history, consider it. So be good to yourself and kind to someone else. Until next week.